All right, Joe, let's start with the Rams game before we look ahead to this Cardinals game on Thursday night. It looked like the defense kind of woke up a little bit in that second half, and maybe some things were working for them against the Rams. Let's face it, it's unusual for them to hold a team to 6 points in the second half.
Yeah, I think you can take a little bit of that as a silver lining and say 3 straight stops to close the game is a step forward in keeping Seattle in that game. But you also look at the drops from Los Angeles, and the Rams would probably point to a lack of execution and opportunities they missed on. So I don't know if I look at that, similarly to how you look at the Niners game, like, oh man, it was great for 3 quarters, but then Nick Mullins torched him in the fourth, right? What does that mean? Is it more Jimmy Garoppolo was just terrible and didn't take advantage of opportunities, or did the Seahawks really take a step forward? So they may have figured some stuff out, and maybe that shows itself against Arizona. I'm still very skeptical, because the biggest drive of the second half, when the Seahawks punted on that 4th and inches and it was a 4-point game, they gave up an 88-yard touchdown drive. So, from that standpoint, I would say, yeah, maybe a little bit of optimism, but only marginally.
All right, it's unusual for you, man, because normally you come out of here flying with some optimism for the Seahawks team, and I'm kind of like, well, Joe, I don't know about that. And you're like, well, you point out these things, but we're at the point right now where even you seem like you're a little bit skeptical about this football team, which sits 7th now in the NFC wildcard area, playoff standing. So it's kind of like they went from top of the hill to bottom of the heap, and a lot of it has to do with the play of Russell Wilson because, let's face it, he's in a slump, and much has been made about it, but how do you think he'll do against this Cardinals defense now that he has seen it this year once?
Yeah, I think that's where I would have more optimism, right? Like, I can't say I'm concerned about Russell Wilson. He's just been too good over his career to not get that benefit of the doubt. The problem is he has to get better immediately, right? Because you can't afford another clunker against Arizona. This is really as much of a must-win game in Week 11 as you'll ever find, right? You mentioned they're in 3rd place in the NFC West right now. If they lose this game, you can honestly, kiss most of your hope goodbye in terms of winning the NFC West, right? Because over the course of the last 6 weeks, you'd have to at some point pick up 2 games against the Cardinals, who now would own the tiebreaker against you, being 2-0 head-to-head. So this is a monumental game here on Thursday for the Seahawks against the Cardinals. And with Russell Wilson, it's concerning on a number of levels, right? Every athlete, no matter how good they are, is afforded a slump, right? That just happens. But the things with Russ is he's always so good about taking care of the football. And so the decisions he's making and the turnovers he's had have been so baffling in that sense. Secondly, you've also seen him just misfire on throws he normally makes. A lot of the deep balls that he hasn't connected on over the last 3 weeks, you'd say, man, normally, he hits on those. So I think part of it is it feels so trivial for us because he is the best deep ball thrower in the NFL. And so every time he just chucks it deep and the guy's got a step, you expect him to hit him in stride. And when it doesn't happen, you're like, man, that's weird. Is he allowed to miss on those? Because you're just so conditioned to seeing it work, and where you're less amazed by it every time because, like, yeah, it's just what Russ does. So it is a good reminder that a lot of those throws that he makes look elementary aren't so elementary after all. And so it's those two things combined. Russ will be just fine. He's a guy who I think, obviously wants to be the best. He's very focused. He's been accountable for his mistakes, which is what you want to see for a leader, right? Be accountable for it. Don't overcomplicate it and understand, hey, I got to get better. And that's what I'm going to expect from myself without dwelling on it. And, oh, the sky's falling and this is the end. So I'm not super worried about Russ, but it is fair to say that he has to have a big game on Thursday night.
Well, he's going to get some help. I think you and I and every Seahawk fan knows that if they can carry the football and run it a little bit, it sure would keep those defenses from pinning their ears back, because knowing that all the Seahawks can do at this point is throw the football, and they've roughed him up quite a bit. So on the injury front, looks like from the reports, Carlos Hyde will play. Chris Carson won't play. Tyler Lockett had the knee sprain after the last game, and it looks like he's a go. So how much do you think that running game will help Russell in that offense?
Yeah, I wrote earlier this week, the Seahawks, Pete Carroll spoke a lot earlier in the week about balance. And I don't think the Seahawks have a balance problem. I think they have a Chris Carson problem. There's a difference between missing your top running back and missing one of the league's top running backs. And that's what Chris Carson is. He truly is a special player. And you mentioned defenses pinning their ears back. No defense is scheming and game planning for Alex Collins or for DJ Dallas or Travis Homer. Maybe to a degree Carlos Hyde, but much less so than what Chris Carson brings you. And so That's the problem, right? It's not even, Chris Carson's averaging like a 12.2 carries per game over the course of those first 5 games where he did play, the entire game before getting hurt. So it's not like he had this bell cow role and now you're missing him and you've lost all this balance, right? Like the last couple of weeks, yes, it's maybe been more pass heavy than normal, but they've also been in holes those games, right? So they have been in a pass heavy game script. So there are a lot of factors to where they're still the top scoring offense in football. I don't look at this and like, oh my gosh, they need to completely revert back and, stop this whole pass happy approach that got them where they are and go back to ground and pound, run, pass, and, make it a game where you're controlling field position throughout. Right. So I don't get that, but it is to say that the value of Chris Carson, and again, to a lesser extent, Carlos Hyde, has really been illustrated over these last couple of weeks because those guys do bring something different to the backfield, to where just the threat of them behind Russell Wilson makes sure that defenses have to be accounting for them. And, to a degree where that this doesn't exist when those guys aren't in the lineup.
Okay, lastly, Kyler Murray, certainly a fun football player to watch, and he has, as Bobby Wagner talked about this week, has gotten a lot more confidence, and he has a different mentality than he had last year. He's taking more chances, and there are more run design plays for him. So he's playing with a lot more courage and a lot more confidence, so he is going to be a handful. But you look at the secondary, and the Seahawks are still beat up, and now you have Jamal Adams, who left in the first series against the Rams, came back and admitted he was playing with one arm the rest of the game, still had 2 sacks in the game. But how concerned are you about that Seahawks secondary now going against and really that whole defense going against Kyler Murray and the weapons that the Cardinals have?
Yeah, immensely concerned. I don't have any good reason for why they're going to be able to stop Arizona, at least consistently. Kyler Murray is an absolute stud, and wins like what they had against the Seahawks in week 7, where you can beat Russell Wilson in Seattle in overtime and erase a 10-point deficit. That's Seattle's script. That's what Seattle does. That's what Russell Wilson does. So imagine how much confidence that gives a rebuilding team and a young team and a team looking to get back to being a playoff caliber team. That adds belief. That adds we belong here. We're not rebuilding anymore. We can do this right now. Let's go win the division this year. Heck, what happens down the road in years to come, right? And obviously you get a player like DeAndre Hopkins for free, essentially. That certainly speeds up the rebuilding process. But this Arizona Cardinals team is a really dangerous group. They're 2-0 in the division. Obviously 2 games against the Rams up ahead, but this is a big game for them. If they can sweep the Seahawks, they are absolutely in the driver's seat in this division, and potentially, will never look back. So Kyler Murray's special, DeAndre Hopkins special, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, a noted Seahawks killer. Seahawks defense is in trouble, and I'm not quite sure the answer is going to be of, how they're going to be able to stop them.
All right, man. Huge game Thursday night against the Cardinals. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, always fun, man. Thank you.